Hi there. My name is Beth Ball, one of the writers and designers behind D&D Duet and Grove Guardian Press. And today I'm going to bring you the first of our new GM Diary series for the home duet campaign that Jonathan and I are running together, where I am the GM. I filmed this video, it's been about a week and a half, or at least a week ago at this point. Unfortunately, I forgot to turn on my microphone at the beginning, and so I lost the first 5 minutes. And so that's why you're going to see a kind of shift in just a couple minutes from here, as I couldn't recover the sound from that part of the video. But alas. So in the first video in this series, or kind of maybe a prequel video for this series, I covered steps to take before starting a one-on-one campaign. And today we're going to continue that conversation in a GM diary, where I'll walk you through the first few sessions of our new home campaign. There are a few mistakes that we can make at the beginning of a campaign, and these can take the form of either jumping in too quickly, which I don't see quite as often, and I don't know if that's even going to be a major issue, but actually I have done that before, and what we ended up getting stuck maybe 6 sessions in, and I'm still waiting for that idea to finish moving itself forward, but there it is. So that can make it harder for you down the line. But where I think we are even more likely to get stuck, where I hear from and see GMs getting stuck more often, is waiting for too long and trying to get everything perfectly planned and lined up at the beginning of a campaign rather than just letting themselves begin. And so in this video, I'm going to walk through the different choices that we made in terms of our campaign, what we had set up at the beginning, which really what you need is a loose character backstory, a campaign concept, and an inciting incident of some kind. I knew that I wanted to do a planar adventure, so something that moves from different, not just different places within one planet or world, but different worlds. That's something that I'm really interested in my fiction right now. I'm working on a pen name and some different genres of stories, and I thought that would be really fun to pull into our D&D duet game. And so I talked to Jonathan about my campaign concept and to see if he would be willing to have these two characters who kind of adventure together and basically hop around to different places. I knew that he wanted to play a wizard who past Beth is going to talk to future you about in just a couple minutes. And so Jonathan worked on creating his backstory, and I decided to make the inciting incident for this campaign a test, as well as Jonathan meeting the GMPC. We talked through what it'd look like for him to play a wizard who is older, more experienced, a kind of seasoned adventurer, or what would it look like for him to play someone who is new, young, fresh, and wanting to explore. And so we kind of discussed what would these two different campaign character concepts look like, what would it entail in our duet, and he decided on the more experienced he decided on the new character. So his character is a wizard who is younger, I think like 19, somewhere between 19 and 21-ish. And he's interested in becoming more powerful, gaining more experience. Jonathan then created this character's backstory, and I decided on the inciting incident being a test. So this character is in a magical academy in this area called Hadvar, or the city is named Hadvar. The academy is called the Arcanium. And so this student, the backstory that Jonathan wrote for him is one of kind of a mistaken identity. And so there was this wizard named Grigor who tricked this noble into helping him kind of try to overthrow the Queen of Hadvar. And in so doing, he, in order to do this, he predicted the death of this man's son, his eldest son, which came true. I think that should make you kind of suspicious of someone, but there you go. So he predicted that this man's son would die, and was trying to get this noble to help him kill the either the queen or the queen's children. And so along the way, the wizard captured the nobleman's youngest two children, including his son Edwin. Jonathan's character, whose name is Serrick, was sentenced to work at a young age in the mines beneath Hadvar, which is where he spent most of his life, until Rigor was found by the Hadvarian, whatever their equivalent of, I guess their enforcers are, found by them, exploded himself and the children, or so it seemed. Um, Serrick was underground, of course, working, and was found and believed to be Edwin Black, the nobleman's son. And so, yes, of course, Jonathan would expect there to be some sort of connection between Lord Black and Serrick through his mother, so an illegitimate child of some kind, though, of course, his character doesn't know that or doesn't know that for certain. But it would be reasonable to kind of guess at least at some sort of connection. And so then his character for the last several years, I think the last like 12 years or something, it's been kind of long, has been pretending to be someone that he's not so he can continue on in this noble lifestyle. He left a friend behind in the mines. That friend's name is Hayden, and Hayden actually came into our campaign and became a much bigger part of the campaign way faster than I thought that he was going to. But so as one of the nobles at this academy, um, because of his pretend father's or potentially real father's betrayal of the queen, the father was sent away, probably killed. But Edwin and his mother have been able to stay in Hadvar, although they are in reduced circumstances and not held in high esteem and no longer in a position of honor among the nobles of this kingdom. And so Edwin has experienced being put down, often looked over, and he's on, say, the slower, less promising track of wizards, mages, arcanists at the Arcanium than he should be based on his potential and power. And this is the kind of thing as storytellers that we want to kind of home in on is, yes, we want there to be some sort of positive momentum or positive motivation. So Edwin wants to grow. He wants to be powerful. He wants to help his pretend mother raise her station. He wants to make her proud. He also wants to maintain his life as a noble. He's tried a couple times to free his friend from the mines, but wasn't successful. But he also, in terms of negative motivation, a way to kind of push his buttons, is this way that he's been sidelined in the Arcanium. And so that's something he's going to be sensitive about. And that's really good information for me to have as the GM to know, okay, if I want a character who's going to kind of quickly get on his bad side, they're going to try to make him feel insecure about his accomplishment, his innate potential, that sort of thing, because he has been on this slower track. And so that let me put in some low level kind of bullies, I guess, really easily and early. But it's also going to, I think, be a soft spot or a kind of a weak spot for this character throughout our campaign, where he's going to be really sensitive to any sort of threat or insult, whether imagined or otherwise, to his ability, because it's something that he's been pushed aside for through no fault of his own throughout most of his life. We like to start our session 0 with a normal day in the life of the PC, which means spending time with friends, mentors, or associates, so that when the fabric of the world around the PC utterly changes, the player has an idea of the starting point and what the effect of these changes was. So I brought with me today, and I'll show you in more detail this kind of campaign sketch, but for our first session, what I had was pretty much just this. And here are lists of names and roles. So who are Edwin / Serrick's friends and acquaintances in the Arcanium? I had a couple professors for him, an NPC from our previous campaigns who we love. His name is Dimitri, as well as a couple almost rival sort of characters. Outside the Arcanium, his mother, the Duchess, and Hayden, his friend who was left in the mines, as well as 3 friends. I ended up just using 2 friends and added in kind of an extra enemy or challenge figure. And then for our inciting incident, I have a professor or scholar from another magical academy, l'Académie du Temple, from outside Serrick, give or take, with 3 characters, Professor Flannery, Guzman the bodyguard, and my GMPC Ruse, as well as her, oh shoot, I just forgot the name of the flying cats, her flying cat Eclipse. So that's what I had to start out with. There are other students and a couple instructors who arrived at the Arcanium with the Academy du Temple, but these are the kind of 3 focus ones. And so the other thing I knew for session 0 was that Jonathan wanted to start by creating a homunculus. And so I made sure that he had a chance to do that. The homunculus is really cute. His name is Krupp because the sound he makes, Krupp, 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 that's kind of the only sound he makes, almost like Groot in the Avengers. And so it was based on our cat Jasper, who likes to make that sound. Our other cat Mistra makes a similar sound when she like lands on things, but Jasper is very vocal, and so he was the inspiration for Krupp, the homunculus. So that was all that I had for our first session. I also had an outline a bit more for what I wanted to have happen. So after Edwin got to meet everyone, some additional details. I felt really good after our first session, so our kind of official session 0, that Jonathan had enough interactions with others to learn that his character was a little bit more of an operator than he had originally realized. Edwin's very charming and works to be very charming. He cares a lot about his appearance, and so that's something that he and Krupp have been able to work on together, making sure that they look fancy and presentable, that things are clean and put together around them. And again, these little details, I know it can seem small or silly. You don't even have to pick them out in advance, but being able to pull them into the campaign for what makes this character feel uneasy and what makes this character feel comfortable, and kind of being able to vary the pacing and the emotion as you go can be really powerful. And so then I just keep some short notes for myself as we go along. So once we had the setup with his friends, we got into the magical test to see some of this planar magic, because I wanted to see what is this going to look like in actual gameplay. And it also gave Jonathan the chance to creatively problem solve, which is something I really like about low level characters. When you're at a higher level and you have, the perfect level 5 spell that just like wipes out whatever it is that you're facing, or it has the chance to at least, sometimes I think that's not quite, not that it's not as fun, it's just a different kind of fun. And that was one of the things we were looking for with switching up our campaign, was we wanted lower level characters. We wanted a lower level campaign. However, and again, this is about Jonathan figuring out his character and getting kind of comfortable in Edwin's skin and shoes, more so than figuring out his character sheet, as he already knows how to run a wizard. The What I had them do was kind of get into a magical bubble where they had the potential to select whatever weapon they wanted, so they could kind of pull from their imagination and bring it in with them. And this weapon could have spells involved, or spells imbued. And so he got to see the GMPC take someone out in a way that he found really surprising. And then Edwin had the opportunity to face off against like a fighter type character, so a martial character, but he instead chose to kind of convince this person that they didn't want to attack him. And so he made an ally instead. And Professor Flannery, the leader of this academy, told this select cadre of students that he is testing them deliberately to see if they will be able to embark on this much more dangerous, potentially even deadly mission. And so that was one of the requirements for being involved at all, is you're willing to face deadly stakes and persevere in spite of them. What Edwin quickly figured out on behalf of Professor Flannery, he's very close to Ruse, my character. And so Edwin learned, or guessed at least, that one of the things Professor Flannery would be looking for from him is a dedication to Ruse. In their second test, which I'll talk more about in my next video, Professor Flannery actually poisoned several of the students, including Ruse, at a dinner that he was holding, um, just to kind of see could they solve the problem, who would they choose to save first, and that sort of thing. So as you might guess, Professor Flannery is a little sketchy. I didn't want Edwin to 100% trust him right away. This is someone to kind of keep an eye on, and that's been really fun for me to play with this mentor, advice giver, quest giver type of character who is not 100% reliable and is actually misleading both Ruse and Edwin more than they yet know. But again, we'll talk more about that later. It was around this time with the planar magic that I had the idea of giving Edwin glimpses into the future. And so he, like at the dinner, I think was the first one that he actually had. Maybe there was one in a dream before, but he actually saw himself and future Ruse solving the problem that they were facing. And so that has been really cool to create an even deeper connection between the two of them, even though we've just gotten started within the last few weeks in this game, but kind of strengthening that bond. And that is something that Professor Flannery is going to be using against them, but it's also something that I think makes the game more fun and is yet another one of those motivation kind of strings to tug on. Those are the kind of things we want to be watching out for as the GM. So with these kind of visions of the future, this is something that Ruse does know about. She and Professor Flannery, on their own kind of secret motivation for going to Hadvar, are looking for someone named Serrick. And Edwin has not yet revealed that he is actually Serrick. And Professor Flannery doesn't know, this is kind of the one hole in my plot. Professor Flannery doesn't know for sure that Serrick and Edwin are the same person. He is trying to find that out. Ruse doesn't at all suspect that it's the same person, because while Professor Flannery has lived through the future in her life several times, he keeps coming back to try to fix mistakes, because Ruse is in the future kidnapped by Grigor, this kind of evil wizard, and so they're trying to prevent this. This is one of the new things that they've done, is to try to find Serrick at an earlier point in his life, so that he and Ruse have an earlier connection. Again, we'll get into that more in the next video. The bonus thing about this that I think is really fun is Edwin is, because of his backstory, very suspicious of those who are very reliant upon divination and fortune telling visions of the future, because that led to the downfall of his possible, but definitely is his father. And so Professor Flannery is using this in a different way, but I'm pulling in a form of magic and leading and clues that he's innately uncomfortable with, slash just doesn't believe in, doesn't hold to be valuable. So I think that's all of the major things that are happening in our campaign right now. I'm curious to see if and when Edwin does choose to reveal his true identity to Ruse, as well as the point at which he feels that being Edwin Black isn't his identity. At what point does he feel that Serrick is his identity? The thing kind of challenging that is his friend Hayden is traveling with them right now. Again, once we get later into the sessions, I can talk about how that happened. That was a surprise to me that came out of our first combat. So in our next video, I'll talk about the first combat that we set up in our campaign. It was kind of the surprise part of test 3 for the characters, where they are now in the Wizard Tower, and they're prepping for their first kind of big challenge. Oh, sorry, my dog's trying to get in. They're prepping for their first big challenge, which is going to be thieving something from the palace, or the some sort of holding place in Serenia. But it's going to be a little bit more involved than Jonathan realizes, as well as going to involve him stealing from someone that he would have considered our characters to be allies with yet, and kind of help him question, okay, well, who are we allied with? Where's our moral code in this. And so that's giving me a chance to play with the width and breadth of our world, as well as bring in some different kind of smaller parties and alliances that I think is a natural expansion point from playing in this planar space. So I'm really excited about that. So our next video, I'll summarize the next couple sessions after that. We'll talk about managing reveals so that you're not keeping so much from the player that they can't make a decision about what to do next, that they don't get frozen. How do you decide to give them a secret or not? I think it's easy to land on keeping more from the player than is necessary. But again, we need that even exchange, especially in a duet game. And so which secrets are best kept hidden and which ones are best revealed. And I'll also do a short video on GM notes. The basic version of it is that I have I'll do a little sketch with any references I need in this notebook. I also have kind of a running Google Doc of some of the bigger picture things where I have Jonathan's PC backstory, as well as some of the things that are happening outside of the characters that I want to bring in for future campaigns. That kind of thing can be more difficult for me to keep track of on paper, and so I like to have that in a Google Doc. But this is way less work than I had been putting into our previous campaign. I think it's behind me, but I have a whole notebook from our earlier campaign where I would fill out meticulously between sessions, and here's what's going to happen. And it made for a really fun novel that I am releasing in serial right now, but it was really difficult as a duet campaign. But speaking of one-on-one campaigns, if you aren't already aware, or even if you are, we are running our very first Kickstarter right now for Land of Vampires. And so we would love for you to check that out. It is set in a dark gothic space with, as you might imagine, vampires, as well as werewolves. There are fae. There are lots of really cool challenges, things to people for the PC to meet and make alliances with, interesting choices for the PC to make, as well as what I think is probably my very favorite setting in all of Azuria. I love these characters. I love this world, and it's something we've had available for a while, but this will be its first time available in print, which is super special. We're really excited about it, and we would love to have you join us over in the campaign. So check out links below, and I'll see you in the next video.